Hello, Michael Tracy, TYT. Apologies to viewers who were very annoyed that I just attempted to do a video and the audio is not working. Apparently, I mistakenly pressed the mute button on my microphone here. I repent for that and I profoundly apologize and I disavow that previous video. Okay, so the point of my earlier video and now the point of this video is that the big news of the day is that General Mike Flynn has resigned after mounting pressure that had been exerted by what I would broadly refer to as the deep state, the national security state, kind of a broad constellation of actors who compose this of people who are just in the federal government national security apparatus in perpetuity. Their employment isn't necessarily contingent the electoral process. They just kind of become enmeshed in the bureaucracy and wield power just by dint of institutional momentum and inertia. And now they are exercising that power in a manner which is a little bit troubling. And it's troubling that liberals and members of the so-called resistance would celebrate the termination of some kind of victory in their anti-solidarity efforts because of any kind of real democratic upsurge. He was terminated because elements of the national security state decided to selectively leak intercepts of his phone calls, probably illegally, to some of its favorite media organs, such as the Washington Post, which for a very long time has been the go-to effort for national security types to air their dirty laundry. So Flynn saw pressure being exerted against him to resign because apparently he had a conversation with the Russian ambassador during the presidential transition period. And that was at a time when Trump had caused a huge furor among that crowd because, among other things, he likened the CIA to the Third Reich. Which is not an accusation that can probably be easily glossed over. Although, after Trump assumed the presidency, he kind of did some PR attempts to try to make it seem as though the relationship was hunky-dory with the CIA. But of course, that's going to be a long-lasting grievance on their part when they're likened literally to Nazis. Okay, so there had been this long-standing feud between Trump and elements of the national security state, and this dated back to the campaign, even during the primary campaign. You can go and check various blog posts and articles detailing the apprehension, to put it mildly, that many in the national security state had toward the prospect of Trump attaining the presidency. So this sort of boiled over in the context of the Russia hysteria. I would still call it a hysteria, even though Flynn's resignation would seem ostensibly to vindicate the Russia narrative that many of Trump's opponents have been trying to push. And in doing so, they've stoked a dangerous climate having to do with the Russia-U.S. bilateral relationship. So, Flynn had what was really a innocuous conversation, at least as far as it's been reported, with the Russian ambassador during the presidential transition period, wherein he basically stated, hey, hold tight for a little bit. The incoming administration wants to pursue détente or accord with you, the Russian government. So even though the Obama administration has imposed these rash sanctions and expelled diplomats, let's not have this escalate into a long-term diplomatic crisis. Just sort of wait till we're in power, and then we can reevaluate the situation having to do with sanctions and so forth. So that's actually a prudent move, foreign policy-wise. That's something you would want a incoming administration official to try to impart to their colleagues on the world stage. But this caused a huge freak out because it was seen as further evidence that Trump was potentially compromised by the Russians, that he was a Manchurian candidate. We've been hearing all these allegations for a long time. So Flynn being forced out would seem ostensibly to vindicate those narratives. So that's a little troubling because it probably suggests the Democrats are going to pursue this line of inquiry with even more vigor because it's proven that it can result in the termination of high-level Trump officials. And Flynn was a very high-level official. He was probably one of the very few people to exert influence on the shaping of Trump's ideology such as it exists. So Trump's ideology was always very scattershot, especially early in the presidential campaign. But as the campaign progressed, it became a little more cohesive. It's still not totally cohesive, obviously, but became more so as a result of the influence from people like Flynn. And Flynn's influence was not good. I mean, that should be stipulated up front. One thing had a very belligerent attitude toward Iran. He got behind the podium 2 weeks ago and declared that Iran was on notice and kind of escalated hostilities with Iran, which is highly undesirable because we obviously don't want war with Iran. And Flynn seemed like somebody who was probably interested in attaining that outcome. So I don't lament, and I don't think others should lament the departure of Flynn per se. What they should lament is how the departure came about, which was a result of these deep state machinations, which in probably any other context would be seen as very troubling and actually indicative of authoritarianism. Now, Trump is not the only authoritarian actor in the government just because he's the most visible and the most brash. There are other authoritarian players here who are trying to wield influence. So that was the thrust of my Medium post. There's more to it there with citations and further argumentation. So the point of this video is essentially to encourage people to click on that Medium post, which is in the description box of this video, and subscribe to the TYT Medium page. My piece just came for that page came out, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes or so ago. So this is a companion video, and it is hereby concluded. Also, I'm in Los Angeles at the moment, and I'll be at the TYT 15th anniversary festivities, which are going on today. So be on the lookout for that, and farewell.